Warriors Fan TV match recap with Ty. Game yesterday, epic. Warriors 16, Bulldogs 14. Boys got the W, boys got the 2 points. How you feeling today, bro?
Oh, well, as you can see, we are ripping today. Well, I'll rip any other day, but obviously it was a good win by the boys, and yeah, loving it.
Uh, a lot of the a lot of the people yesterday at the grounds and even off camera that didn't want to come on camera were a bit concerned about how we start. From yourself, watching it at home, how do you think our start was, bro? I know we are very slow starters, but give us your kind of whakaaro around the starting of that game.
Yeah, it was a bit of what do I say? It was a bit tough. Obviously, I think I take into account that it was our first game back at home. Obviously, we had a game in Wellington, but back at Mount Smart, so maybe a bit of jitters, a bit of you know nerves there led to that. But yeah, obviously 2 minutes in and seeing Bulldogs score, you kind of thought, are we in for one today? But yeah, no, I think the boys managed to turn around, especially in the next part of I guess that half. And yeah, bad start, but yeah, they showed a lot of resilience after that.
Question I got yesterday was like up against a better team that can just keep that pressure on constantly
Hmm.
for the whole 80 minutes. We probably wouldn't have come through with that win.
It's a good question, eh? I like that's kind of how I was looking at it yesterday, right? Like the game was pretty close in the end, with the Warriors winning it. Um, but I kind of think that Bulldogs they showed a bit of grit. Like the old Bulldogs, weren't like this. Obviously, there's a lot more players in the team that or they've acquired over the year. Um, but I don't think Bulldogs were slouches by any means. So yes, maybe a better team could have put us away, but at the same time, I don't think we were playing a bad team in the end. So yeah, I thought the Warriors were great to come away with the win yesterday.
And what about the response? So, as soon as we score, it seems like we're a different team, right? Tails are up, a lot of running forward. Everyone wants to be the first runner. How do you think we responded?
Interesting. Yeah, I think again, I always have to reflect on the Warriors of old, and for me, what I'm kind of highlighting here is that last year, we saw when Warriors started being on, the back foot, tries scored against them, they would fold. It was very obvious, even in the score lines, score lines are really close until about the 60th minute, and then all of a sudden blown out by 20 or 30 points. Um, where this one, I feel, yeah, there was a lot of energy. A lot of boys wanted to, take those hit ups, and especially, when any team scores, your tails up and you go harder. But I think what I saw when they were down, they were staying in the grind. You could even hear the commentators talking about that a lot. Stay in the grind, Warriors, stay in the grind, and they did. So for me, been a real shift in their attitude, and their kind of concentration, and I think it showed this game and also last week. So it's a bit of a flow on. Cowboys they look good. They had a bit of what is it? Just they stayed in the grind, and that's the hardest part of a footy game. And again, they stayed in the grind even when they were down, and managed to come away with the win.
Because we are known to be that team, eh, bro? All you need to do is just stay in the grind, stay in that arm wrestle match, eh, and we will eventually fold, right? That's the cordial way around the other teams as well as stick in with there with the Warriors, and eventually they'll just yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Eventually we'll fold, eventually we'll make a mistake, and then that turns into, multiple mistakes, then it turns into a try from the other team, And the funny thing is, we did make a couple of mistakes here and there in down periods, but then still figured out how to, stay in it. So again, I'm very aware as a long-time Warriors fan that, we got to ride this roller coaster that is the Warriors. But there's just a lot of difference in their attitude, and I could only, obviously the players have put in a lot of work, but the management, whatever they did in the off season, and acquiring people as well as setting them up, um, I think they've really done a good job, and we're starting to see that. But still early in the season.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from, bro. Long term Warriors, sufferer of our great team. So yeah, no, I understand. You're not getting too carried away, eh?
Now it's hard to get carried away with the Warriors. Obviously, I'm one of those people that say it's our year every year too. Um, Objectively speaking, I've had the Warriors sitting outside the eight this year. To be honest, they're showing more than I thought they would already. So a little bit more confident than I I first was when I thought about the season. But yeah, it's still early.
Still early, man. So back to the game. I know it's a real tough one, but what do you reckon? What do you reckon the coaching staff would have been saying to the boys in the locker room? Obviously, it took us 28 minutes um, to cross the line. Yeah, okay. Once we did, tails are up in the air. Yeah, I've got here Vilea. 28 minutes. What do you reckon what do you reckon the coaching staff would have been saying to the boys during the halftime break?
I think cliche. Yeah, I think it was just go back to the basics because I think they just kind of from my memory watching the game, there was a lot of moments where they don't, it's not that they tried their hand too much. It's just like um, it's easy to guess try too much. And also when you're down, it's easy to feel like you're having to chase. So I kind of assumed that the halftime call would have been just go back to basics, stay in the grind, like legit stay in the grind, keeping it, trust in yourselves, and eventually when those moments, come, take them. And you could see, Shaun Johnson. I can't remember how many runs he had, but that try he had, that wasn't just off the back of him, got a lucky opening and went there. It was that kind of perfect timing, waiting until those opportunities presented themselves and then attacked it. And that's that whole stay in the grind and just wait for it. Um, which I think the coaching and the management staff would have talked about at halftime. Just stay in there, stay to the basics, and your time will come.
Let's switch it over to have a corridor about Wade Egan, bro.
Mm,
He's been pretty big for us this season. He's been pretty instrumental in the whole team. Lussick, a young dude from, I believe he's from the Roosters.
yep,
I think he had a season over at the Roosters.
yep.
A couple of question marks around him. How do you feel he managed that pressure, bro? How do you think he played yesterday overall?
I think he did really well, to be honest. Like nothing outstanding. Like I'm not gonna say he was the best player on the park. I think that honor belonged to Johnson in the end. But he did his job. He played really well. Usually when backs can attack like that, because a lot of the tries came off. One was through Johnson passing to Vilea, as well as Vilea giving that pass out to Montoya. A lot of that comes off from having really solid core in the middle, and then being able to play out wide. So just from that alone, you can tell that he, as a hooker, that's his kind of role, is to make sure that they're getting up the field, and also defensively they're strong. So I thought they were quite strong in the middle. Um, and I think that was a factor because of him. But also, Wade Egan provided that for the first two rounds. And I think one of the things, though, like if I had to be real honest, around the Warriors is like, getting that spine right has been a challenge. I think Wade shows that he's got something there, having scored a couple tries and been a bit solid in his first two or first games. Um, but I think, Lussick didn't do anything wrong to, have him off the park next week. So we'll see how that unfolds.
Yeah, because we don't really have any news yet about Wade. Hopefully he's all good and he's gonna be back. Obviously for sure.
Yep.
But it was good to see Lussick out there doing the hard yards as well.
Mm.
A guy who did come back though was Shans
Mm.
at one. Um, yeah, what's your thoughts on how he played yesterday, bro?
Yeah, well, just going off last week, I think Topiki, he played really well, really safe at the back. I think he's got something to him. Obviously coming from Q Cup, you can definitely tell he's got something to him. And I actually liked his game last week. And obviously, Shans is the fullback for the Warriors, so obviously he got his chance in the weekend, and he was safe. He was actually, I felt like he was. I don't know, maybe he just had a good week or something. But there was no, I can't remember if he had a drop ball, but I don't remember too many, if any. Where those, their first game, there was a bit of shakiness there, in the other game too. So I think he actually played really solid. I do think though on the attack, they're still trying to get it right. I think Shaun Johnson and Martin getting their chemistry right, but I think it's still feeding out to the fullback. Still looking a little bit iffy there personally. But defensively, he was there. He did what he could, and yeah, I think yeah, I wouldn't say he stepped up because I think that's the chance we know, but he definitely played well in the weekend.
Yeah, you pretty much stole my next question, which was our 6 and 7 pairing,
Mm.
right? I know it's really early days, but even some people I was talking to yesterday were saying that it feels like they've been playing together for a while. I know it's very early, and we've had some really good wins, but you can only judge what you see in front of you, and they seem to be having some sort of chemistry. I mean, is that just us fans kind of painting a pretty picture around the 6 and 7? I mean, you're a long time sufferer of this team, so maybe you got a different idea on that one, bro.
Yeah, well, I think we have to start with, Shaun Johnson. Although, he showed yesterday that when he does have those moments of running, he can still break through. He's not the Shaun Johnson of, old where he'll step anything, break any line. So, we've got this kind of, obviously, Te Maire Martin's a bit younger than himself. And it's cool kind of to see their chemistry kind of build, because obviously they've had, I don't know if they ever played together. I can't actually fully remember. I know that they're in the Kiwis camp together, so they know each other, Kiwis. You can tell that they have got some, already prior chemistry, and it's starting to build really nicely. I still kind of watch it like, actually, who's the one in control? Because they kind of both look in control and they both look like they're going to run. So, well, it's just not a bad thing, right? They might be creating something a bit different. What I actually think personally, what is adding to them is actually the addition of Dylan Walker.
Mm,
Because basically it's like they're running three halves out there. When Dylan Walker comes on, he's played centre. He's also played at halves, especially with Dale Cherry Evans and, playing over there in Manly, and also all the way back to Rabbitohs. So just seeing him on the park, connect with Johnson, connect with Martin, like that's looking like real good, and I hope that continues to build. I just think it's just the last part. They've been doing good skip balls out to the center, which has been working, but it just looks like they're a bit not unsure, but they're just still getting the chemistry right with whether it's Chance or even with Topaki at the back.
mm. I know Dylan Walker. I think he put down a few balls yesterday. I think he might be a bit filthy with himself. I know he was after another game we had where he penalised himself and made himself stay at training for extra bit longer than everybody else. So it'll be interesting to see how he feels after yesterday's game. But talk of the town, I suppose. Him and Tavanga
Hmm.
linking really really well. The team's looking strong with those two. Those two are looking decent, eh?
Yeah, man, they're looking good. What are they calling them? The Bold Brothers. Like, we've got the Splash Brothers here over in Golden State Warriors, and now we've got the Bold Brothers here over in New Zealand Warriors. So pretty interesting name, and for obvious reasons. But I think what they're bringing to the squad, and like that's what I'm liking about the Warriors, is that the depth that they have off the bench now. I personally question if they even had, the depth to kind of go forward with. But those two and how they're playing, because if you kind of look at them, both of them can play kind of a hooker role or a 13 role. So it's kind of interesting why Webster and the management have gone with them, because they're kind of similar, like not similar players, but like kind of can fill a similar role. And that's why it's probably going to be harsh on whether it's if Wade does come back next week, because Luxic's probably going to fall out because those two players exist on the bench, which is weird, right? Because usually if you have a replacement hooker come in, they'll just fit back into the bench. So that's kind of the dynamic that the Warriors currently have, is a kind of ball playing 9/13, as well as like a hard runner, kind of tackle every day 9 and 13, and the ability to kind of use them at will. But then when you see them on the paddock at the same time, I feel like that's been providing a lot of stability for the Warriors, especially when replacements come on and they have to kind of get in there and dig in. Unfortunately, Dylan has been dropping a few balls, and that sometimes it comes at real crucial moments too. So I know a lot of us Warrior fans are like, "Oh, we're there," then drop the ball. But I think what he adds to the line, in terms of his like straightening up the attack and just being aggressive, even in D, I think that kind of outweighs the cons. But let's hope for less errors going forward.
Absolutely, bro. Just in closing, a couple final ones. Big player for me yesterday was Ford.
Mm.
An absolute beast. I'm just looking at his stats now. 40 tackles. His meters are crazy. Everything like that. I know the cliche would be Shaun. Obviously for the obvious reasons. Man of the match performance. But for me, Ford's just an animal. He's just a beast. Young guy as well. What about for you, man? Outside the obvious, was there anybody else that kind of stood out for you?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, I definitely think Ford deserves a lot of praise for what he did defensively. I do think Villiers, showed on attack what he can do, and I personally have liked Williami. Have He's been playing really well as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see, what they do once Williami's back from injury. One that I have to say, and I don't think everyone probably pointed out, because he kind of just gets through his workload. I think Adam Fanua-Blake is thriving off what he's got in front of him. So I think, of the past, he's been heavily relied on to like get the boys up the park. But if you actually just watch kind of his gameplay now, not only just is he going to the line, chucking their ball back, but it's just his footwork is like he's starting to like he's always been doing this kind of footwork at the line, but like there's just things to his game where he kind of I think he's thriving off just the pack going forward and the ability to just kind of all the focus is on the other guys and he can just kind of play his game, and I feel like for me that was kind of a underappreciated person yesterday, because it just looked like he's doing what he does, but I feel like he's starting to get in a bit of a groove, and eventually I feel like I think he might start to break out and show what he's got when the focus is not on him to just get up the field. He can actually do his thing. So yeah, that's kind of who I saw as someone that was like, oh, I like what I'm seeing here.
And we're kind of developing into that team where it's just multiple forms of attack is what you're talking about, right? Not
Mm,
all the pressure's all on one person, not all the pressure's all on one guy to carry the ball up, not all the pressure's all on one, it's like we've got this team now that's looking pretty scary, bro. You know, you got halves running at lines. You got these big ball dudes who can smash through, but also, you know, so we're looking decent anyway, bro. That's all I'm gonna say.
yeah, I agree. I think we're looking decent. I did have the Warriors sitting outside the eight. Like I said, I do think they're starting to look like a more of a top eight side than a lot of the other teams. I think the chemistry is looking good. Like they're building a really good chemistry. I still think there's some like individual things that are probably a question for me, and like I think there is a lot of X factor in the Warriors, but I feel like when you verse your Penriths, you verse your Rabbitohs, your Sharks.
Mm,
I think we'll see if we can fight
mm,
that X factor. So um, I'm loving the Warriors at the moment. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, because it's still early in the season. And then with Tohu out and even Mitchell Barnett out, that's a bit of solid in the middle kind of stuff that we may miss. But hey, when Tohu went off, the boys still did it okay. So that's what I'm loving. It's when we don't have our normal players that are out there doing their thing, we're still finding a way to win or figure it out. So I'm
mm.
loving that. We can keep focusing on that. Who knows what happens.
And just lastly, bro, we travel to Sydney and play the Sharks, and then we're gonna head up to the Knights, bro. Um, Sharks are sixth.
Yep.
We are fourth. Sharks just absolutely demolished the Dragons.
Yep. Good
They
game.
couldn't get the job done against the Raiders, and they edged the Eels. We're going to be away from home, so we definitely raise our tails up, when we're in front of 19,000 screaming home fans. What do you want to see us do when we're away from home, bro?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of those players, whether they're a part of the Warriors over the last couple of years or they've just come from an Australian team, it's pretty much home now. Aussie's home. I've spent so much time over there. So I'll kind of be calling out there. Just treat it like we're back at Mount Smart. Um, this is our home because we've been here for a while. So that will kind of be my call. I have been watching a bit of the Sharks game, especially last night. Shout out to Nico Hines, did my fantasy team well. Thank you, my brother. So I definitely think he's the key to watch out for this. And I think difference watching him and then just watching the Dragons game, they let him run. So I think there has to be a call out to not let someone like Nico Hines run across the park, because once they do, it kind of just opens up the park. So we can really shut down that kind of their lateral movement, but also just I think what the Warriors have shown, and again, this this is really cool to see it get tested. We saw the Bulldogs kind of try and test it with their backline. It's our ability to kind of what is it get our line up when those backline plays, and Dragons were just letting them run into them, and you can see the score. That's kind of how it turned out when you just kind of watch someone like Nico Hines that's in the backline, and you've got Raimi and you've got Ronald Mulatalo and all that in the backline. So yeah, if the Warriors can treat it like home, really make sure that the tempo of the defense, the line speed is great, and they're also not just for the first three when the forwards are coming, but making sure that they're set with the backs. Especially, I'm hoping Neo Kore and Ford, given that their second rows actually try and keep Hines to stay in the middle and get up a little bit earlier. I think the Warriors can come away with the win, but the Sharks have been probably not the best because they haven't had him since last night, and he showed that when he's there, man, he's gifted with the ball. Yeah. So yeah, I think the Warriors can do it, but it might be a tough one there in Sydney.
So it's a shout out to all our whānau over there in Sydney. Dust off those Warriors jerseys. All right, get yourself down to Cronulla.
Yep.
Get yourself down to Sutherland Shire and go support the boys. Bro, it's been a pleasure having you on here, bro. A recap of the game, up the Waz. Let's see what we can do
100%.
against the Sharks, my bro.
Up the Waz. Let's go.